Turn the bass up.
I got the profit up. I always double up. It ain't nothing, bruh. It ain't nothing, bruh.
Hey, True Believers, Chris Mack coming at you, revisiting The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 55. Ever since we went over the initial comic, there's just been an itch that I've been wanting to scratch with this issue. Because I go back and I watch the review I did on the initial issue when I didn't know anything that was going on. And you could hear it in my voice from the review that I'm just excited about this story because there's just was so much potential. And even going back and just reading this book solo, I was excited. There's just so much interestingness that could have come from this. But then you go and start reading the next issues, 56, 57, etc., so forth. And it is such a fucking letdown. Buckle up because this is not going to be a nice review. This is going to be a little bit of a disgruntled nerd boy review. Here we go. So, spoilers if you've not read this, and it's about 2 years old. This came out December of 2020. I remember when Spencer first took over the book, and he was making some great strides. He'd finally brought MJ and Peter back together, and he revisited Kraven's Last Hunt, and it felt a little bit like a repeat, but when you go back and realize what they were trying to do, it was cool. But the fact is, you go back and you read the original Kraven's Last Hunt, it was maybe, 4 or 5 issues. And it still holds up to this day because it was just one of those pivotal Spider-Man stories. However, I don't know if this was Spencer or if this was Marvel, but when you get into the next story, I don't remember if it was just called The Hunt or whatever, it felt like it spanned almost a year. And then they had like the 19.1, 27, like all these .1s in between each book, kind of showing all the different characters. It really, honestly, should have been maybe 7 issues at most. But that said, that's why this book pisses me off so much. Again, now, spoiler alerts, you find out... Oh, wait, I almost didn't finish my thought. The reason I bring up Kraven's Last Hunt before going on that little tangent was they started to introduce Kindred. You start to see that Peter was trapped by Kraven in this hunt, and Mary Jane was left defenseless with Kindred just kind of sniffing around saying, I know who you are, Pete. And you're just like, how's he know he's Spider-Man, etc., so forth. Now, the spoiler alert. You come to find out that Kindred is Harry Osborn. Whoop-de-doo. Because when you go back and you read the latter half, the ending of Dan Slott's run on Amazing Spider-Man around the 800s, I think it is, Harry has a family. Norman Osborn's the Red Goblin. And just to see them completely demolish Harry and to make him a villain again, I mean, maybe this is just the father of me talking, but the man has a wife, and I think 2 kids, and we're going to go rehash shit that happened years ago. Peter even says, Harry, please stop. They've got nothing to do with this. Oh, I disagree, Pete. I think they have everything to do with it. They're just a symptom of a larger problem, your selfishness. Some of them are children, for God's sake. And so Harry's basically saying, you're always a loner, so Spider-Man having these quote-unquote children around is just making his own family. And he even starts to poke at Gwen from another dimension, saying, it's funny, you remind me nothing of her. But where everything starts to come to a head is he entices Mary Jane to come because he wants to bring the 3 people that have always been a big deal in his life. Now, real quick, I'm getting ahead of myself because I just let the frustration of this issue get to me. I want to give a shout out to Harold. I was able to pick up the second printing when this came out, but go check out Action Figures and Beyond group on Facebook. I'll leave a link down in the description. He ran a contest. I won this issue, so I just want to say thanks, buddy. Appreciate you hooking me up with it. Now, with that said, back to the disgruntledness. Harry just basically says it's nice to finally have all of us together again. Glad to hear it, Harry. So you knew then. Well, that's for the best, I suppose. Now let's sit down and have a dinner. Do it for an old friend. But Peter just goes berserk because he does not want to lose MJ. And that's one thing about Spider-Man's character that's always been consistent, is that anything that happens to the people around him, Aunt May, MJ, J. Jonah Jameson, and even Harry before all this, he takes the responsibility on himself, saying it's my fault. Same thing with the Goblin when his father got amnesia, forgot who he was. He still tried to protect Harry, and that's part of why Kindred is so angry. And that's when we kind of get into the dinner scene. Again, I went over this, so I'm trying to just kind of do large strides. So Harry's saying, we had our whole lives in front of us, the three of us. I wish y'all could have seen him back in the day. We all, Pete was going to be a great scientist. I was going to inherit my family's empire. And you, MJ, you were going to be famous. But then there was me. I suppose that night was really when it all started to go wrong for me, wasn't it? I should have known. Because you noticed that MJ was kind of pulling away from him. The way that Peter and Mary Jane looked at each other, even though him and Gwen were broken up at the time. And Peter's just saying, stop this pity party. You need to hear this, Harry. I can at least, you want to ponder what might have been? Fine. But don't forget, we go, who got you to the hospital that night, and not for the last time. You're right, Pete. I guess I just can't help wondering where it all went wrong. Like that night when you called the doctor, who showed up at the window, but dear old dad, the Green Goblin. And they're talking about, and this is where we're getting into where Peter didn't tell Harry who the Green Goblin was. Because I was trying to protect you. I knew it'd devastate you. You worshipped him. And he's saying this, he was my father. Instead of telling us where we could get him some help, you just left him to the whims of his mind. And so this goes back over everything from the Stan Lee day, the Kirby days, the Ditko days, not the Kirby days, Ditko days and the Romita days. All old, great stories that establish everything that everyone builds upon. Now, while all this is happening, we notice that Norman Osborn, dressed as the Green Goblin, is coming to stop Kindred's, attack. Now, Peter, again, as he takes everything on himself, he goes, so what then? Just tell me and I'll say it. Whatever I did, however I wronged you, I'm sorry. Whatever caused you to turn into this, turn myself. You did this to me. So again, when I first reviewed this issue, just going back and seeing the hurt that the three of these people have been through, done to each other, just really hits on so many levels. And Spencer really captured what the three characters used to represent. I hate now that Harry's a villain once again. You would think that they would have gotten past that, but again, Norman always kind of coming back to the Green Goblin is frustrating. He even tells Harry, he goes, why do you care about this? You hate them all. I care because they're mine. And so there's supposed to be this big battle between him and Kindred, which is father versus son. And we see this explosion with Mary Jane, and you're thinking, holy shit, history's repeating itself. And honestly, that's where the issue, and maybe this panel where this book should have ended. Kind of like with Amazing Spider-Man 121 when Gwen died. This is where I get pissed, because with Spider-Man, with any comic, there needs to be growth, not shock value or treading water. And that's what it kind of feels like with Kindred, Harry Osborn being a villain again, and Norman Osborn being a goblin again. I scrolled through issue 56 and 57. 56, you come to find out that Mary Jane's not really injured in any way, shape, or form. It was just a flashbang, and she's like, play along. Being an actor, I'm used to this kind of thing. And I remember when this book came out and people were hooting and hollering, thinking, oh shit, maybe Mary Jane's going to die or something big is going to happen. Nothing happened. It was all bullshit. The next issue is good in the sense that Norman Osborn, you come to find out, again, spoilers if you've not read these, Osborn made the plan with Mary Jane. They were going to go try to get Harry, and so Peter's pissed at Osborn for using Mary Jane as bait. And you come to find out that Norman doesn't want to be the Green Goblin. He even tells Harry, he goes, I did all this to bring you to Ravencroft where I can heal you. Inside, I could still see my son. Great storytelling. But I do feel, and I don't know, I just feel like something more should have happened. I don't know. I feel like the Peter Parker, Mary Jane thing has just been played out. Them getting married back in the late 80s was phenomenal. Them being husband and wife, them having to overcome being a couple while he's this superhero. And it put a strain on their marriage. I mean, there was times they were separated. But now, you know, we come back to this, and they're together, they're not together. They're together, they're not together. And now we come back to 2022, Zeb Wells takes over the book, and there's that whole thing of what did Peter Parker do? And again, spoiler alerts. I haven't read them. I've just seen other people talk about it. But essentially what happens is Peter and MJ are whisked to a future or some dimension or whatever. They meet this guy. I can't remember his name. But Peter gets sucked back to the present or to his reality. And he does anything and everything he can to get back to MJ, to bring her back. You know, 'cause it's his love. But when he gets back, Mary Jane's married to this guy with kids. And that was the whole thing of what did Spider-Man do to lose Mary Jane? Talk about just a wet fart in church type situation. The same thing if you go and you read, what was it, Amazing Spider-Man, what issue was it? It was part of the Zeb Wells run where it was the Beyond, not the Beyonder, it was some cosmic entity trying to make everyone do good. And the last issue shows Gwen reappearing out of nowhere. And then the next issue is Gwen just following Peter around. And you come to find out that it's not Gwen Stacy. Well, to a degree, it's not Gwen Stacy. It's this entity trying to make sure, to see if the human race is worth a damn, with everyone trying to do good, to show that human beings can be good even though they can innately to a degree be evil. It's an interesting concept. But at the end of it, the alien tells Peter, I'm going to give you a gift. And it gives him a chance to talk to Gwen Stacy one last time. That was cool, but then that was it. And at this point, again, him and Mary Jane are once again broken up, not, 2 years later or something. And again, just treading water, treading water, treading water. I would have found it more interesting if Gwen, if they said, I'm going to give you a gift and brought Gwen back. Not the Spider-Gwen that we see here, where she's mouthing off to Harry, saying that, you know, Peter didn't give us a permission slip to, you know, let us be spider heroes or whatever. Because none of us, we just did this. On the other hand, it feels like, and she even pops off at Harry and says, on the other hand, it feels like you're the one that's carrying all this emotional baggage, etc. So forth. She says, you seem obsessed. But to bring back the original Gwen would have been an interesting choice. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm wrong on this, let me know. But the way that I've heard the death of Gwen Stacy came around was Stan Lee was getting ready for a business trip or something. And I think it was Gary Duggan was the writer at the time, said that they were thinking about killing off Gwen Stacy. And Stan Lee was in a hurry, didn't really hear me. He said, okay, yeah, whatever. Came back from the meeting, and they said, oh, yeah, we killed Gwen in this issue. And he goes, you what? Now, how true that is, I don't know. That's just different sources that I've heard. If you guys have any knowledge, let me know. But in doing so, it really tore Peter apart because that was his first love before MJ. And I love how Zdarsky in what was it? I can't remember what that series was called, The Life and Death of Peter Parker, or something like that, where it showed heroes' age in real time. And Mary Jane always felt like she played second fiddle to Gwen Stacy. Even though she did love Peter and he loved her, there was just that ghost of Gwen Stacy always looming over their marriage. And it was just an interesting take. So I just feel like with writers of Spider-Man, if you're going to break up Mary Jane and Peter Parker, leave them. At this point, a lot of us are just sick of it. I, in particular, am very sick of it. If you're going to tease at Gwen Stacy coming back, bring her back. Let them be together. Let them get married. And let's move on from the will she, will they, won't they, will they, won't they. That's why I hated old sitcoms, because the main characters would break up. They'd be back together. They'd break up. And I just, at that point, I did not care anymore. Now, this isn't the first time that this has happened. If you guys remember, I remember this very well, SpiderMan One More Day. Still kind of a hated story arc, but it's after Civil War, and Peter Parker Spider-Man reveals to the world that he's Peter Parker. Well, in doing so, it sets him up. Aunt May gets shot, and she's dying. And so Peter's desperately trying to find any way that he can to save her. So what happens is he literally strikes a deal with the devil, which in this universe is Mephisto. And they run him through this really surreal situation where he meets just these random strangers that give him advice or whatever. And then at the end of it all, him and MJ, she says, if we really do love each other in any universe or dimension or whatever it is, we'll find each other again. And so they allow Mephisto to tear them apart. Aunt May is healed, and then we reboot with a Spider-Man #1. And the world doesn't know Peter Parker's Spider-Man anymore. Him and MJ are not married after decades of being married. I feel like with One More Day, instead of doing all of that to bring Aunt May back, the logical choice that I would have felt as a writer is to kill Aunt May. Because then that would have left this pit in Peter, and I feel like it would have strengthened him and Mary Jane's relationship more. But no. Comic book, I don't know if this is on comic writers in general, but I feel like it's more on the editorial staff where they're too afraid to commit to the bit with change. They don't want to screw too much of their IPs up. So like, oh no, we can't kill Aunt May. We gotta have Aunt May. We can't kill Mary Jane. We gotta have Mary Jane. And I think when I reviewed the Krakoan books, the X-Men Krakoan books, I think that's what pisses me off the most. Is resurrections happen through the years. It's nothing new. Death of Superman really kind of kicked off that trend, has just really killed it since. But now it's like, oh, mutants can't die. We're immortal. So nothing matters anymore. And that's kind of, I think, now saying that, that's what pisses me off now when I read comics from the big two, is it feels like nothing matters. As much as it, okay, and this is kind of another tangent, as much as it pisses me off that DC killed Alfred. And I think what more so pisses me off is the fact that he was unceremoniously killed. Robin tied to a chair and Bane just snaps his neck. I feel like Alfred should have went out in a blaze of fire or, blaze of glory. But finally getting a better writer on Batman, just that void that it leaves in everybody's life has helped push the stories forward. So even though as much as I would love to see Alfred back, I don't think it would be a good idea. I just feel like it would undo a lot of the emotional resonance that's been happening in the books since his death. And again, here, Norman wanting to save his son, those are some really nice moments. But the fact that there wasn't no real stakes per se in this run, that's what I think really chaps my ass and why I was so pissed after I reviewed 55 the first time, is I was really hoping that, okay, MJ's going to die or something's going to happen. and we're going to have this blowback fallout that's just really going to tear people's lives apart or shake them up. And if you read issues 56 and 57, there's just nothing. And now we go into the Zeb Wells era of Spider-Man. And the couple of issues that I've read or I've just seen people talk about, there's no big change. Mary Jane having a husband, that's interesting, but it's not going to last. Marvel's going to want that status quo back at some point, especially being too tied into the movies. That's my opinion on it. And this is just something that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while now. So thank you guys for kind of rolling with me here in my complaints. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. If you've enjoyed what you've seen or you're just kind of curious, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is you like to get your comics and figures, and grab a copy or the collected trade and kind of read it in its entirety. And we just, as I just said, love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And if you've enjoyed this little comic review over here on the After Dark channel, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, as well as hit that fancy little spider bell next to subscribe. That way, as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love to talk with y'all. And I just said, love hearing your thoughts and feedback. So with that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.